Hey, howdy y'all. Good morning and welcome to Whiskey Woman Whisk. I am making this lovely crunchy blueberry breakfast casserole for my family this morning. I did have the recipe, but I will put the recipe in the description for you. You can double this up, but I have cut it in half. So I'm using an 8 by 8 for this half recipe. I'm going to go ahead and get that. Some oil on there. You could use butter, whatever you prefer. Set it aside, and then I'm going to go ahead and get some bread cut up. So you'll need about 4 or 5 ounces, half a loaf probably for this 8 by 8. The best guide would be to just kind of cut some up, and then when we put our liquid in there, then you'll be able to gauge whether you need to add a little bit more bread or not. Pretty much just soaks it all up. It is just like doing a French toast casserole. That's what's so fun about this casserole is it's kind of a cross between a French toast casserole and a fruit crunch oatmeal bake. So that's what's really nice about this is it's kind of a combination of the two. So I'm just going to get all this bread cubed up into about 1-inch squares and pop them into that casserole dish that we've greased up a bit. And then we will get to mixing up our batter and our toppings. Now I'm using some sandwich bread. You can use some, French loaf, some ciabatta, or some old sourdough. Older and kind of stale works better. Unfortunately, this is not very old, but I was just really craving this recipe this morning. So be sure you use something that's kind of getting a little stale or leave it out to dry a little bit. That usually works as well, which is what I should have done. Okay, so getting our eggs in here. I'm only using 4 as I'm halving the recipe, minus the shell. I managed to get a little bit of that in there this time. Let's go ahead and get that out of there. So as I'm halving the recipe, that's 4 eggs for me for this 8 by 8. And we're going to get that mixed in with some milk. You can use milk or half and half or cream. The heavier the fat content, the heavier the recipe is going to be. So I'm just using some half and half here. And then we're going to add in a bit of vanilla. And of course, I'm going to use my bourbon vanilla. This one here is from Trader Joe's. I also have some homemade bourbon vanilla as well. And we're just going to whisk that up, and then we're going to get this poured on top of our bread. So you just want to pour that over, and then I'm just going to get a spatula here and try to make sure it's all coated. I might have used just a little too much bread this time, but I'll just kind of use that spatula and move it around and try to get that bread to soak it up. And if you notice you don't quite have enough, or if it's too liquidy, more importantly, then you'll want to, add a little bit more bread to your casserole dish if it's a little too liquidy. So let's just stir this up and make sure all of it is covered, just like you would if you were making a French toast casserole. And then I'm just going to set that aside, and we're going to get started on the really yummy part, and that's the topping. So first I want to get some nuts chopped up. I've got about a half a cup of walnuts. You could definitely use pecans here, whichever you have on hand or whatever your preference is. Yes, I know this is a bread knife, and I have other knives to chop up nuts with, which would work so much better. But in the interest of fewer dishes, I just went with it. So get you some nuts chopped up, and as I said before, I'm only doing half a recipe for this 8 by 8, so I only have half a cup of nuts I'm chopping up here. And then we're going to put that in a little bowl and start adding our other ingredients. Now adding these nuts to a bigger bowl so we can add our other ingredients. I'm going to add in my old-fashioned oats. I'm only using half a cup as I'm halving the recipe. Then I'm just adding a couple of tablespoons of flour. The full recipe would be 1/4 cup. And to that, we are also going to add some brown sugar. So the full recipe would be 1 cup. I'm going to use half a cup packed brown sugar. You could absolutely use coconut sugar or sugar alternative here, or you could just use less of the brown sugar if you're trying to watch how much sugar you're using. But honestly, as is this recipe, you don't need syrup or anything. But if you plan on using syrup, which I recommend blueberry syrup, you could cut back on that sugar a little bit for your topping. So just give that a good mix together, break up the clumps of sugar, and then we're gonna cut in some cold butter. So I've cut up half a stick of butter, and I am just using my hands. It's just so much easier, and I don't want to break up my nuts any smaller than I've already chopped them. You could definitely use a pastry cutter, or just get in there with a fork or a knife and just break that butter up into this topping mixture and just get it good and crumbly, pea-sized butter pieces, and break all that down together. Mix it up really good. You just want to add this mixed up crumbly yumminess topping and put it on top of your soaked bread. Make sure you spread that out all over. This is the yummy magic that gets crispy, crunchy, almost like a fruit crisp bake, and just adds so much deliciousness to this breakfast. It's almost a dessert. I mean, it's breakfast, but it's almost dessert. Anyway, so get that all spread out, and then we're gonna top that with our blueberries. I'm using frozen that I've let thaw out. As you can see, I have blueberry juice dripping everywhere, so yet another mess I've made. Now I will say you can definitely use other fruits here. I have blueberries just do fine if they're on top to be baked. You definitely could have put it in with your bread mixture or in between your bread mixture and your topping, but some fruits wouldn't bake as well on the top, so you could definitely mix those into the bread mixture, like pears or peaches, or any kind of pie filling would be great. But I have done peaches and put them down inside the bread mixture and then added my topping. Look how delicious. Let's get this in the oven. We're gonna set that oven at 350, which I've preheated, and then we're gonna bake this about 25 minutes. You can see it gets a little golden brown, and look at this delicious breakfast. My family really enjoys this crunchy blueberry breakfast bake, and I know your family will enjoy it too. I hope you give it a try. Thanks so much for hanging out with me this morning. Y'all have a good one. Bye.